Okay, but that brings us back to what is today, which is the winter solstice, or Yule. Of course, Christmas will be on the 25th. Yule or winter solstice comes on the 21st or 22nd. This year it's on the 21st, which is today. And so I just wanted to kind of talk about Yule. When it comes up to each, I did want to kind of do a quick little, I'm not going to go in depth about it. There's a lot of information out there. I am using two resources over this year. I did follow the Wheel of the Year. I talk about this in my Wheel of the Year spread, which I will link below, how I set up my spread for, instead of doing the year ahead every month, I have done one for each for the year, Geomancy for the year, and then I set up the Wheel of the Year. So I'll put a link to that video below so that you can see that if you missed it. I am using two sources. I was saying last year I did loosely follow the Wheel of the Year, and I really enjoyed it, but I didn't focus as much attention on it as I wanted to, as well as I really didn't go back to my year ahead spread monthly. And so I thought a way to combine those two things was to follow do a Wheel of the Year spread, so that I would, constantly have that reminder of mine. I've set up that top shelf again to keep that in the forefront, and so that's kind of how I'm doing, combining those two things together. The resources I am using this year, I am not a Wiccan, but the Wiccan did kind of coalesce the Wheel of the Year together. Wiccans did coalesce the Wheel of the Year sort of together. These are things that have been around forever, but they kind of pulled it together. So a lot of the resources do come from that aspect. You have to learn to, don't let that turn you off of a book. Not that anything about Wicca is going to turn you off, but what I'm saying is that just because something is like, this is the Wiccan year and I'm not a Wicca, there's still a lot of valuable information to someone who is not a Wiccan, and so don't let that turn you off. I've actually found so far, obviously I did not start with, they start with Samhain, which is true. Samhain is the ending and the beginning, but I want to kind of work my way around to Samhain, so I am starting with the second, what they call the second season of Yule. And so I've really enjoyed this particular so far. Again, I'm just in it. It's by Judy Ann Knock. And so it gives us some information about it, talks about the winter solstice, talks about legends and myths. But what I really like about this book, why I'm using it in conjunction, because you'd think, oh, well, this should have everything you want, and it has a lot in it, even more than what I actually need. But what this does is really go through what are the celestial events, as they call it, happening. What are the signs? What are the constellations that are in view, and what does that mean? So they really go into that, which I think is, for me, because I'm also really focusing a lot on astrology this year, that's great to have. It has a lot of meditations in it. It has rituals to do, like creating the Yule log, creating a Yule charm, which I'm going to do. I'll talk about that in a minute. And, making candles, which I really want to do. I'm very tempted to run to Michael's and at least make a Yule candle to use when sitting with my card this evening and doing a Yule spread. So it's not a real big, obviously, because this has all in one, so you have about this much, but I found this to be really helpful and I enjoyed it. So so far on my first one, I'm happy with the purchase of this book, which you can get in ebook form. I've just found references for me need to be not ebook form, and so I purchased this by itself. So I'm using that resource, and then I'm using the Llewellyn Sabbath Essentials, which are full books on the Sabbats. And what I like about this versus this, I like astrologically and conciseness, right? So I'm finding myself, I read this first, it's a little more concise, and I like how that happens. This has a lot more going on. It has, I think this is the same in all of them, where it has a walk through the Wheel of the Year that I find to be really great. In fact, I made notes. This is my notebook I'll be using for the Wheel of the Year, and I kind of walked through it myself and made notes about that because I found that to be really helpful. And I think that's in everyone, and it shows you the Wheel of the Year for the Northern and the Wheel of the Year for the Southern Hemisphere, because of course that's going to be flipped in the Southern Hemisphere. So, for example, for us, it is Yule. In the Southern Hemisphere, it is actually midsummer. So they're going in a different path with the Wheel of the Year. Now, I would assume there are some people in the Southern Hemisphere who maybe still follow the Northern Hemisphere, but I would assume not, because the Wheel of the Year is about following the cycles and the seasons, and so you would want to modify this to fit your cycles and seasons, right? Or you don't have to, but that's something you can do. For me, this pretty much does follow, because I'm in the northern part of the United States, and it does fairly well follow my seasons, right? I love how Larissa from Storytelling Tea and Tarot, she on YouTube, she added in because she is in the desert area, and so she added in a monsoon season, because it's a really big important section of their seasonal cycle. And so when she did her Wheel of the Year, she added in a season for monsoon. So I loved that, because I just love, the point of the Wheel of the Year is following the cycles of the earth, and follow the cycles of the stars, following the cycles of the moon and the sun, mostly the sun here. The Wheel of the Year is a solar cycle following, right? What is the sun doing at the different times of the year? And so, you want to have that be in tune with where you are at. So for people in the Southern Hemisphere, what I'm going to be talking about with Yule isn't going to happen until they get around to June. So, as you'll see on theirs, June is when they will have their Yule, or winter solstice. So that's going on. So that I like the way that it lines it out here. And then there is a section on the old ways. It really talks about the old mythologies and the old things. It talks about the old, I like this section here, as you can see, because I highlighted it. Solstice means that the sun stands still. So it appears as if the sun stands still for, I think there's a period of 6 days this book talks about. And so this happens at the winter solstice, also called midwinter, and Yule. And so it comes from the Old English Yule, which also refers to Christmas Day. The Old Norse Yule, I'm sure I'm slaughtering this, which was a heathen feast lasting 12 days. Possible links to Odin and the Wild Hunt. Old Anglican, recorded by Bede. The Old Norse Ylir, Y-L-I-R, and the Gothic this. So it goes into all of the way that the Romans celebrated the birthday of the unconquerable sun, and it talks about sort of the historical aspects of the day. It just does have a section on the astronomical. Yeah, no, that's right. I said gastronomical. Astronomical cycle of Yule. But I do find this to really go into more depth about that. Then it has the mythical cycles. What are the goddesses? I really liked this section. It talks about how in the older times, the winter was really associated with the female, but the female fierceness aspect of the female. And then it goes into gods and or goddesses like Frigg and Holda for Germans. It also talks about how a lot of the different places had called it the Mother's Night, or the Night of the Mothers. So it was definitely a lot more to do with female deities and very fierce ones, because it was a fierce season. And so it goes on. I really love this section. It does have a section for the male energies as well, who were often the winter kings. They were the heroes that were battling, and so then it talks about those various aspects there. And so that's more some of the idea of midwinter's celebrations, where they did the fools and the misrules, where everything was sort of flipped on its head, where the king would become the peasant and the peasant would become the king, to sort of give that. There was a lot of those types of traditions during that time period. The tradition of gift giving, both of charms and talismans as well as gifts themselves, talks about the Yule log. So this is more a historical section of what would have happened during those times, because most of these, not all of them, but most of these were have been time periods that have been celebrated across the world for a very, very long time. And then there's a section on the new ways, just ways in which you might celebrate in the more modern world, how you might bring that forward with different things. So there's a section there. Then there's a section on spells and divination, talking about magical timing, talking about spellcraft, if that's something that's of interest in you, protection things, gingerbread puppets, magical bags, Yule log talismans, all kinds of anything, blessings from mothers, because we talk about the old way, the idea of the sacred mothers in winter. And so, and then it also has a couple spreads. So there's a tree spread, and there is a solstice spread, which I'll be doing when we're done with this. How to divine in other ways, such as auguries and puddles and animal tracks and weather and things of that manner. I really like this, which I'll talk about. I'm going to do this, the Welsh tradition of omen days, which I'll talk about in a second. I'm going to be doing that. Then there's all kinds of recipes, cookie recipes, like food recipes, drink recipes, candle making, all that kind of thing. And then there's prayers and invocations. If you're, this kind of goes off of pagan and Wiccan things. So there's a section on that. So again, there's a lot more in this that doesn't necessarily apply to me, but there is a lot that I can garner from this that I find to be helpful enough to spend the $10 8 times this year. I already have in bulk. And then what I really like about this particular book, this series, is that at the end there is a section for correspondences, and this is really helpful because it lists keywords for that holiday, magical focuses and working things that you might do, some astrological timing, the archetypes, so female being the Holy Mother, male being the father time or the warrior king idea, what are a list of the deities and heroes that are associated, and as well as gods, magical beings. It has colors and why. What do those colors signify? So green signifying abundance and life, the living evergreen that thrives through the winter, new beginnings and wealth. It goes through herbs and spices that are associated and what are those properties. It goes through the trees that are associated, flowers, crystals and stones that are associated with the season, metals, totems and animals. I love to see that raven, which is one of my personal totems, is it's associated with being the bringer of light, and thus is deeply associated with the winter solstice. Reindeer and stags and pigs and horses and flying reindeer, right? So it has animal associations, scents. To tarot keys, it has the Hermit, the Magician, suit of Pentacles, and the World associated here. Different symbols such as cauldrons and darkness and light and mother and child and trees, that kind of thing. Foods that are associated, drinks that are associated, activities. What are some things that you can do in acts of services? This is a whole alternate names for the winter solstice listing. So really holidays and traditions in the northern hemisphere that you might be doing, because of course it's different. Secular correspondences and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of correspondences, and I find that to be really helpful, as well as further reading. So of course I think for all of the solstices, Joseph Campbell's Here with a Thousand Faces is fantastic. I actually need to reread that one. but some further reading and some online sources as well, and then a complete bibliography and an index. So there's a lot of information in these little books, more than I need, but for what I do get out of it, I feel like it's worth it. Of course, by the end of the year, I'll have the whole set, and be able to have that for every year. So those are the resources, of course, and other online things, but these are the main resources I'm going to be using, and so we just kind of walk through that. This is my notebook for the Wheel of the Year. I have put a picture of my Wheel of the Year. So I took a picture of when I did out my Wheel of the Year, which again, I'll put that video below. And I have a picture of that here. I need to list the actual cards as well, but you can see them. I took the image from, this here for the Southern Hemisphere, of course, and put that in here, and I've colored in Yule because that's where I'm at as we follow along. Again, I kind of did a quick walkthrough of the Wheel of the Year, and then as I was reading through those two sources, I kept notes, astrological, the mythological things, which we talked about, all these, and anything that just jumped out to me particularly. For crafting, I really do want to do some dipped or rolled beeswax candles. The charm that combines bay laurel, cinnamon, and nutmeg in a circle of green cloth, bind it with a red thread, and then kind of keep that with you for Yule, and I would say through Christmas even. I really, that resonated with me, so that's something I want to do. The spread, the Solstice spread here, which I'm going to do in a moment, that was something I wanted to readdress. And then I really liked the Welsh Omen days. It really resonated with me, which starting with the 25th, so that will be Sunday or Christmas, and going through the 5th of January, you would either use your favorite divination method, such as doing a card reading with various decks. It could be Lenormand, it could be any type of divination system that you enjoy, and you're going to do that and get sort of a message for each of the months. So the 25th relates to January, 26th to February, 27th to March, all the way through to the 5th for December. And so they also say to pay attention. Do you see a flock of birds that fly up in a weird way? Is there, a strange knocking at the window in the middle of the night? Does a dream come on that day that's very significant? So paying attention on those days to any omens, and or just doing a reading or pulling a card. So I'm definitely going to be doing that, and so I will keep, write that down so that I have that to reflect back on. I will also be putting in, when I do this particular reading, which I'm going to do for you today here, but I will also be doing it there. I've also done a Yule reading for myself already, because I do Yule readings in my shop, and I did one for myself, so I'll be putting that in here and keeping track of that. So this is sort of just going to be my notebook for throughout the year, and anything I want else to put in that's related to the seasons and the Sabbats and that kind of thing. I may do a little bit of journaling at the like for Yule. I might do a little bit of each, some journaling, that kind of thing. So that's what I'm using, and that's kind of my little start into Yule. What I intend to do today is I will be fixing my space. I usually do that at full moons, but I felt like it's the end of the year. I kind of want to, take everything out, dust everything down, and put everything back. It's that sort of refreshing. It's the end, starting at the first, at the beginning. I'm also, which I'm so sad I couldn't show to you, but I'm also going to be, if you haven't watched, Patrick did one of his Story of the Crystals yesterday. He did on his Fire and Ice collection that he is using with his Wheel of the Year, because he does the Wheel of the Year every year. So I'll put a link to that below as well. So he definitely sucked me into that. But what I'm doing is I'm getting a point. So a point being, something like this fluorite that actually stands so that it can stand. I can stand it up, and he has made sort of a beautiful looking Stonehenge, but it's going to go work with his wheel of the his year ahead, which is monthly. So he has 13. I'm going to be doing the same thing, but I'm going to be doing it across the year. So I have one that's purchased for Yule that was supposed to come in yesterday, but you know, the mail is a mess this time of year, and so it is just showing sitting in Boston, Massachusetts. But I have one for Yule. I also have one coming that will come by the first of the year that will be for representing the year. That's would be the 13th for Patrick's. If you're doing the wheel of the year, for me that will be just the year, my 9th one. So there's 8. Keep pulling that reference up here. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I'll have one in the middle that represents the year in general. And so I have my Yule one. I'm getting my one for the year, and then for each of the Sabbats. So in February, March, April, June, August, September, and then around to Samhain, I will be purchasing a new one. And so by the end of the year, I'll have a complete set that will always I will work with my wheel of the year. As I move into the next year. So that's really exciting. I was hoping to have that to show to you, but I do not. So let's go ahead and do the spread here that was again in this Yule book. Let me see if I can find it here. Oops, I should have written on my book. Celebration. Well, here. I could make use of, here we go, Divination 71. There we go. So I'm going to do this solstice spread here for us. Let me put this to the side so you can see how you could do that. I'm going to use this little deck because this little deck, which I slaughter the name all the time, is called the Idiosyncra, something like that, tarot. It's under the Cracked Amethyst. This is out of print currently, but it is coming back into print in January, as well as an oracle that's going with it, along with it. Jen sent this to me, and since I have received it, I have done multiple readings for myself only, and it has been just a comfort. It has been enlightening. It has just been that sort of deck to culminate the year up and give me exactly what I needed. It's been amazing for me. So I'm going to go ahead and use that one. It has these crystals on the front, so I have this shard that Jen also sent me that I keep on top of it, because please look how amazing that looks, right? So I'm going to be using that today, and I'll be using this when I do my actual, which I'll do more, you know, with candles and more with intention, but I just want to show you this particular reading. So it is a 4-card. Let me get this little book out. It's a 4-card here, but the cards are over here. So let me just split this here. So the first card is going to be the 3 of arrows, right? So in this deck, the 3 of arrows would be the 3 of bows. And I love this because it's kind of, you've got the cliff from the Fool, it seems like, and it's shooting across to these tropical islands. Go take a, it's moving on to better places. That idea there. Wait, is it arrows? See, now I haven't. Yeah, arrows would be the wands. So we have that representing, so number 1, you know what, you're not going to see well, are you, because of the sunlight. I know it gets darker, but it was kind of washing. In my view, it was washing. It may not have actually been. So the first card represents you in your, deep within your winter cave, it says. This is that sense of having for me, the 3 of Wands, the 2 of Wands is about planning and that kind of thing. The 3 of Wands is like you've shot your plans out. You've done things. You've put things out into the world, and now you're simply waiting for that to come to fruition. There is that moment of the arrows being in the air, right? So there is that moment of pierce. So you'll see with the Rider-Waite-Smith where you'll have somebody sees their boats out in the water and they're waiting for those ships to come back in. So it's a little bit of a lull while you wait for the things that you've put out to kind of come to fruition. So it's a little bit of a hibernation or a pause, which makes sense in this time of the year, right? So that represents you deep within your winter cave. The second card is the card of contemplation, reflection, and here we have the Nine of Wands. So there is, this talks about if winter is a time of reflection, evaluation, and contemplation, how is this affecting you? And so there is that sense of, for me, so this, might end up just being for me. For me, this is very apt. And again, this deck is just really in tune with me because I've done a lot. I don't generally do daily readings, and I haven't done daily, but I've definitely done every few days, just pulled 3 cards, and it's just been a really powerful experience. And so this is that sense of just needing to hold on and get through, right? The Nine of Wands is there's a last push, there's a final wave, and that just needing to kind of get through. And that's definitely reflective of what I'm contemplating, right? Number 3 is the card of celebration and acting. So having done some reflection, how are you going to move forward? And here I love this because we have the Page of Stones. So the pages are about learning and initiating, but it's about stones and stability and earth and groundedness. So for me, this is like kind of going from what is a emotional time in the holiday season, starting with Halloween, and it just rolls in, and it's quite a emotional as well as a influx time for me, and so it's going into, now I need to move into a more stabilized aspect, and so that certainly makes sense for me moving forward. The 4th card then is the card of light, realization, and success. And here's the Queen of Arrows or Wands. So that sense of creativity, right? That sense of really creating an environment in which my creativity can grow and expand, which is really something that I've been thinking a lot about and needing to pull back in and start working with things that fill my bucket, as I like to say, which has gone by the wayside in the just get by aspect of the last couple months. And so I need to stabilize so that then I can start to actively produce. So I think this is really beautiful little solstice spread. And of course, again, this is from Llewellyn's Sabbath Essentials from the Yule book. That's where I got the reading from. And so this is something that you could do today if you choose to do so. But I think it's a nice little kind of touch-in. And there you have it. And I love this little deck. I actually did a walkthrough of this for myself. I'm going to do another one now that I know that this is going to be coming up where people can get the deck. And I just kind of want to talk a little bit about my experiences with it, because it's really been for a very simple, sweet, not sweet, but simple, clean lines, no people, nothing in it. Vector art. It's just vector art. It has been really a profound experience for me working with this since this past month as I've had this, and it's been a great blessing. And you just never know. Again, it's cute, and like I don't think I've ever seen this before she showed it to me, or before she sent it to me. If I'd seen it, I may have been interested because I do like the vector graphics. I do think it looks really neat. I don't know that I would have purchased it. So it's one of those things that, it comes, and out of a lot of decks, I have a lot of decks and a lot of deep and profound decks. But for me, the depth and the profoundness this last month, which I've needed, has come from this very simple, very clean little deck that has been very profound and powerful for me. So there we have it. I hope that you have a wonderful winter solstice or Yule if you do anything with it. If not, and I haven't seen you until then, I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holiday. Of course, for those in the Northern Hemisphere, It's a happy midsummer to you. I'm just kind of going through these as they pertain to me, but to all of you out there, which I know we have and that are celebrating midsummer, have a wonderful midsummer as well. So have an absolutely wonderful day.